Hello, and welcome back to another interview for Project Seed Money. My name is Sharissa Bradley, and I am joined today by author Jo Ann Fawcett. Thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing a little bit of time with us. We are so excited to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. Love opportunities to share my stories and talk.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I want to just ask, how did you get started with writing? Did you always want to be a writer?
No, you go through school and I loved getting A's on all my English papers and that was great. I've written one poem in my whole life and I can't say that I've done a lot of creative writing. I don't have a brain that works in fiction. But several years back, I used to speak on the UFO circuit about my ex-husband's military experiences. So that's a whole nother story. But a woman came up to me one day and said, "Well, when's the next story coming out?" And I said, "Oh, he's always writing something." And she goes, "No, when's your story coming out?" And I go, I'm not a writer. I'm not. And she was very psychic. So that planted the seed that I needed to start writing my story. And so over the next few years, I was making notes and stuff. And then let's see, before the pandemic happened, so like probably in 2019, I hooked up with a writing. She was an author where I lived in California, and she was hosting a writing group. So I thought, oh, that'll be fun. And because I'd gotten the urge to, kind of start writing stories about my life and about, different kinds of experiences I've been through. And so I started going to this group and we would, write, and we would write while we were there and we would write at home and then we'd come back and share. And so that really got me going into writing my first book. And then by the time, COVID hit, then I had more time to finish it because I wasn't going anywhere. So I finished it and got it out and said, oh, this is good. And it also became part of my healing journey because of two of my books are about my toxic marriages, multiple toxic marriages. And the third book that I'm finishing now is like the culmination of that. So for me, it's just like, and now I've got the bug. It's like, and so it's been a very healthy, magical tool for me. So yeah.
That's incredible. And it's inspiring that you didn't always want to be a writer and then that
Yeah.
someone kind of planted that seed for you. So we never really know how our words are going to impact other people because that started a whole new journey for you.
It did. And it's interesting because while I've been working on the third book, I got one of my grandmother's stories about how, as a child in Indiana and Oklahoma, you know, the wheat fields or whatever was growing in the fields, there's all this grassy stuff. And she said it's in the summertime, then the fireflies would just rise up out of it's like, and in my head, it's like, oh, there's a picture book that's got to be. It's like, so all of a sudden it's not fiction, but it's like all of a sudden I'm thinking even more creatively. It's like, how can I make that into a kid's book? So who knows? There may be a children's book to come out with some stories that I've heard as I've been working on book 3. So yeah,
That's beautiful. Maybe even with a legacy element to it, which I just love. You're sharing your stories to keep them going.
exactly.
I
Exactly.
think that's beautiful. When you were writing your first book and your others since, did you face vulnerabilities or self-doubt when you were going through the process?
I did because my husband at the time, who's now my ex, he was a prolific writer and he thought he was a really good writer. Turns out maybe he's not as good as he thinks. That's why he got a whole book about being a narcissist. But the vulnerability was, well, I'm not a writer. It's like, how can I be it's like I'm not very good. But then people were hearing my stuff and they really liked it. So it was a lot of self-doubt and the imposter syndrome and stuff. But it was really encouraging when my best friend, who also knows the ex, it's like, your books are better than his. It's like, oh, really? And it's like, cool. And since I published 2 of his books, or a couple of them, it's like, I know that my books have sold more than his. So,
I don't know what could be more validating than that because that's just facts.
I know it is fact, but it was because you just kind of doubt because I've never been trained as a writer, and even with these first 2 books, it's not like I took a lot of classes on craft. I never took a book on how to write a memoir, and that memoirs are usually sound more fiction than mine do. It's like, oh, there's rules. There's rules to this genre. Okay, that's not how I wrote my memoir, but I still call him a memoir. But I learned a lot about the publishing side, how to get it published and how to market and things like that. But these are things, okay, I'm on book 3. I'm finally gonna do more of the marketing things that I've learned that I should have learned sooner. So there's a learning curve, so that's a vulnerable state. And you just never know who the book is gonna touch. So,
Absolutely. So it sounds like you had people around you that were supporting you, even if it did
yes.
even if you had some negativities involved at the same time, it did sound like you had some support. Was there anything else that gave you the bravery or the confidence to go ahead and go through that finish line? Because you do have 2 books in the world. So even though
I
you've
do.
had the fear and you had the self-doubt, you did it.
Well, part of my person is that I'm a witch, and I have this lovely magical practice. But one of my favorite writing classes or workshop was called Writing Between the Worlds. Yeah. And one of my favorite witchy teachers was one of the 2 teachers, and we would get together online. And I think it was about a year and a half ago, it was early 2024, and we would chat, but then we would meditate,
Mm.
and they might have given us a writing prompt, or there might have been a theme, but then you go into meditation, and then your stuff is just, then you're writing.
Yes.
And it's like, and then you shut the book or where you wrote it. And what was so lovely for me, and number one, that's my space. And I really was getting lovely messages from my grandmothers and things. And that really helped me with the current book, which is Messages from the Grandmothers. So it's like I'm looking back at the book, oh, I learned so much from that class. And I forgot that every time we meditated, something from my grandmothers was coming through.
So beautiful. I
Yeah,
love that. And then it just totally adds to that legacy element. You're adding all these pieces. You're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for all of your, lineage before and after you. And I
I
think
am. And, I have to say, it's like my support, my daughter is like, my biggest cheerleader. And my sister, my older sister, she's been very supportive. And so that's been, and I have friends that are very supportive. It was just the ex that was not supportive.
and I'm
Um,
really glad that you did have a supportive
I,
community
I
because
have a great supportive team, and it's great. And like you just said, it's become this whole part of this healing journey. And it's healing things that I can see or come right down through my lineage. And I'm hoping to pass that forward to break that chain. So, and I've learned even through, the writing class, like writing is now part of my magic, and magic is part of my writing. So
I love that. It gives me the chills. It's like it's all connected.
it is all connected. And if it can touch the hearts of one person, cool.
Absolutely. It does sound like you also offer some support or classes around this same model of kind of healing from the narcissist.
I don't have any official classes. That's always been one of my hopes to like offer a group. So I do offer to people, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm here. I don't have an official, I'm not a coach. I don't want to be a coach, but I am certainly, I've had so much support around that issue that, there's a whole world of people, unfortunately, who are victims of narcissistic abuse. But I am happy to reach out and have a phone call or a Zoom call or an email chat with somebody who needs that, because, that's a sad place to be. It's a hard experience, and people can experience it with anybody in their life. So yeah, I would be happy to chat with anybody, like as a mentor, a peer support type person. So
Yeah, that's very generous. Thank you for offering that. I love that. Did you end up going the self-publishing route? Did you create your own imprint?
I do have my own imprint. It's Dragon Hill Books, and I've used that for the first book and the third book. My second book, I went through a hybrid publisher, and there are many good hybrid publishers out there. The one I chose didn't end up to be the best. I mean, my book looks great, but some of the customer support and, things down the line were not satisfactory. So I've taken my rights back. So I will now redo that a little bit and put that under my Dragon Hill Books. So yes, I have my own imprint.
That's amazing. And it's interesting that you had the experience of both because, like you said, there is a lot out there that really isn't giving the support that authors need. And if you are somebody who's looking to have like a little bit more creative freedom and a little bit more control, the self publishing route is just, it's really opening up that world for everyone.
Right, right. And, some people, and I would encourage people, because not everybody cares about publishing. Sometimes we just want to write. And I have found myself, my daughter, bless her, she gave me this cool book on the fearless writer. I think that's the name of it for my birthday. But it's a book about, that's written by an author, a writer, but it's also like tips on how to be mindful when you're writing and writing prompts and things. So anyway, it's helping me just trigger just writing.
Yeah.
Whether it's related to a certain book or not. So it's, sometimes you just need to write. And sometimes I just have things now that I need to get out on paper instead of keeping it in my head. Plus, I do journal every day just about my daily life. But even if you don't want to care if you, the writing is what's important, whether you publish or not, not everybody cares about being a published author, but, just keep writing.
Yeah, that's such good advice because sometimes we just need to utilize it as the tool for
Right.
processing, and it doesn't necessarily have to go anywhere else. There is a tremendous amount of vulnerability attached to allowing other people to read your story. And I wonder, did you experience that at all when your stories went out into the world? Did you feel any like extra vulnerability? Like now they're out there, other people are reading it.
Well, I did a lot of podcasts to promote the first two books. And like, I am totally transparent. It's like I've been married 7 times. Most all of them were abusive in some way or another. So I'm out there telling all my story. And even now with the third book, I finally admit in public, yes, I was assaulted or molested as a young teen, just like everybody else in my lineage. But I never said that before
Okay.
until I've said it to a couple people in my family, but I never said it like in a book or in a podcast. Well, it's all out there because that can help some, because, we don't need to feel the shame of not being able to talk about that kind of stuff. So yes, work past that vulnerability. Yes, it's vulnerable to say all those things, but
Yes.
maybe it's just I'm a Leo. I don't know. It's like at this point, and I'm 71. I don't really care. you know, I'm just gonna say it like it is.
I can appreciate that, and I am looking forward to that level of confidence. Hopefully,
Yeah.
that comes with age.
Yeah, at this point, it's like, who cares what people know about my life?
And I think you're right. When you're sharing that information, you're helping to allow those the darker spots of our lives to have that spotlight shown on them, and there is no more shame if it's brought
Right.
into the light, right? And so I do feel that you are bringing that for other people. You are giving that, and that's so valuable because then we don't have to carry the shame, like you said.
Well, and people need to feel like they're not alone, and that there's so much support that can be offered, and we can get through this. I mean, I got through 7 terrible marriages. Okay, I know who does that, but who does that? And, but it's like, I'm doing great. And so through my books, through the podcast, like if one person can feel that I can be okay too, you know, you don't have to
Yes.
be married 7 times to figure that out. Don't do what I did, but I'm here to tell you, you can be okay. You can get the help you need, whether it's talking to a therapist or your friends or just writing it out. You can feel better.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. I feel like it's almost redundant because you've been saying so many beautiful things, but I wonder if you have anything else you'd like to say to just inspire my audience who's on the fence and they've got their stories in their head and they're just maybe the fear is stopping them. Maybe it's the vulnerability that's stopping them. Is there anything you can say to help inspire them?
One of my favorite mantra things for myself is like, it's never too late to make a change. So it's just never too late. Again, I'm 71. I've changed my life a couple major times, 40s and in my 60s. And behind the computer here on my desk, it's like on my wall, it's like, I am strong. I am capable. You believe in yourself because you're worth it. So, you
That's
know, you are enough for yourself and for everybody, and it doesn't matter what they think. Do not define your life by what they think, and do whatever you need to do to get yourself to the place where you fully love who you are.
beautiful. Thank you so much. I just feel like this has been incredibly valuable and so powerful, not just in the writing space, but in the healing space. I appreciate you bringing that energy today. Do you mind just telling my audience where they can find you and where they can find your books?
Sure. My main website is joannfawcett.com. So that's got my books, my bio, all that stuff, my healing journal. And soon it will have a blurb about the new book that's coming up. But I would love for people to go to the website, sign up for my email list, because I'm doing weekly newsletters now, and there will be, updates about the book and all that kind of stuff. And if you just need to chat, send me an email.
That's so beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for being here. And thank you
Oh,
for
thank
spending some
you.
time with us today. I really, really appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode for Project Seed Money. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And I will see you with another interview next week.